So the next level is mesh. I've done a video unboxing overview on this. It's called a GoTenna mesh. They make another one that's not a mesh. There are some others. Beartooth is one. I've seen 2 or 3 others that are popped up on Kickstarter. If you watch the video on the unboxing, you'll see why I picked the GoTenna mesh. This is kind of the new up-and-coming thing in the civilian world. The mesh concept has been around in about 2 different areas. So amateur radio hobbyists, they've done that with Wi-Fi routers and other kind of things. And then the military and the federal side, they've had mesh networks for a long time because they can come in, they can set up a central point that's got all their big power and everything, and all the radios, well, these aren't mesh radios, but all the radios relay between each other instantaneously. And you can go into an area like Puerto Rico that was hit by a hurricane or earthquake areas too. There's no infrastructure, right? There's nothing. They can come in, set this system up, and the more you add, the bigger it gets. So, you put in 4 radios. Normally, you have your repeater and your 4 radios that kind of go around, or point to point. With mesh, if you have, one person here, another person here, and instead of just going here to here, now you put another person here, and this person can relay through this person to this person. And you grow your network as you add people. Now, the majority on the civilian side, they do text and GPS. There's a couple that do voice, or they do voice memos that you send kind of as a message. The military side and the federal side, the radios they have are, like regular radios, but they're just mesh. So they do voice, data, all that kind of cool stuff, GPS. But they're really expensive. They're just over the top, and it's just not practical for normal people like me to have a set of those. But the reason that this GoTenna mesh is so important, that we're trying to really get on the cutting edge of this stuff, it's scalable. So the more you add, the bigger the network gets. This specific one, they're 1 watt. So you can watch 1 watt. You can watch the video on it more. This is just your transmitter receiver. Your phone does all the hard work, and it makes the text, GPS, that kind of thing. You can download maps with these, have offline maps. The downside for some people for going this route as opposed to this is you have more moving parts. You have to have a phone that works, or an iPod Touch, something like that, or an old phone that's in airplane mode that doesn't work anymore. You need to have this device charged, both charged. And you need to have lots of them. This has been good for us about a mile in really urban area of Dallas. We haven't had a chance to go out in the wilderness and try it. GoTenna just did a post that they went glider to glider up in the air, about 40 miles, a little over. And the big push for this is you need more, right? So you need more of these scattered around. So if you're going to be at your house and someone is at work and you're 5 miles apart, you need to have some kind of system set up where they're in between each other. Just to make that signal go further. If you're in an area like a farm or a ranch in the middle of nowhere, or a theme park with poor radio service, or a college campus, or a concert, the benefit is you can make a quick network that's simple, that you keep using your phone, you just put this on your belt loop and you're done. But again, it does take multiple parts to work. The next step up, which for me is kind of like the final tier for me, is satellite phones. They are long range. You can use them anywhere. If you get a good Iridium, you can use it pole to pole. You can send text, you can do voice, you can do data, usually slow data, but you can do data. The downside to satellite phones, and when I go through this list, I'm going to base this all on Iridium. I've used Iridium a lot. That's what I'm always going to use. I've always had the best connection speed. I've always had the quickest signal acquisition. I've always had the best coverage in the Amazon. I had one and it worked great. I've had one, used one at the South Pole. It's worked great. And I've used one in a storm, a really bad storm, and it's worked fine too. The downside with getting a satellite phone is your cost. You're going to come in to having a kit that's going to be a realistic emergency satellite phone kit of solar panel, Pelican case, couple of spare batteries, a headset. Remember, a satellite phone has to have a line of sight to the sky. So if you're going to be in a vehicle or a house, you need to have a magnetic or a remote wired antenna that goes outside your vehicle, or a home kit or marine kit that goes outside so you can talk on the phone inside when the weather's bad. And probably a case for the phone. They're really durable, especially the extreme model, but it's still good to have a case, just bouncing around, that kind of stuff. When you get all into that, you're talking about $2,000 for one phone. And if you're going to look at two phones, you're looking at a minimum of $4,000. That's not even including your monthly bill. If you're looking at one phone with a realistic plan, we looked at one, it was 10 minutes a month with rollover minutes, and I think you got like 2 text messages or something like that. That was $80. That also included voicemail, and you got a US phone number. Because one thing you have to remember with satellite phones is everyone I've ever used uses a long, very long international phone number. Even if you have an international plan, you still get a huge charge for calling and sometimes receiving calls from satellite phones. So part of that $80 is you can get all the ones I looked at, they're Arizona-based numbers. And you can get a national number. So if you have a cell phone or a landline, you just call a normal US phone number, and you don't have that huge phone bill coming back at the end of the month if you make phone calls to or from the landline to the satellite phone. So they're very expensive. And, if you're going to, for me, there's no point in getting one, right? Because if there is a major disaster and you are talking about terrestrial networks going down and you are far enough away where this GO10 is not going to work, even if you have your ham radio license, if you're thinking it's bad enough that you can't go through internet repeaters or something like that, and you really truly need to be able to communicate point to point with a satellite phone, you're not going to want to have just 2. You're going to want to have more than that, right? You're going to have one for yourself if you travel. You're going to have one for your wife. You're going to have one for probably your parents or loved ones. You're going to have one for your group if you have a bug out location and you want to have one there. So, you're looking at, when I looked at the numbers and started putting together, you're probably looking at 4 to 6 for this. And if you're really going through those numbers, that's a lot of money. And that's a lot of money per month. Now, you can get emergency plans. They used to have them. And, it goes both ways. You don't have a monthly plan, but as soon as you start making a phone call, you're paying like $2 or $3 a minute. And your text messages are about the same per text message. And if you're in an emergency, I know a lot of people say money doesn't matter. But if it is an emergency that's going to subside, if you're making hours worth of phone calls over a week or so period, like say you're in the Keys and you had 4 to 5 days of no outside network connection, you're going to use that all the time, right? You're going to talk to family, you're going to talk to insurance, you're going to talk to all those people. That bill's going to stack up. If you're talking $3 a minute and you're going to talk for hours a day trying to just figure stuff out, logistics and things, and people are going to want to borrow it. I promise you, people are going to borrow it. If they see you talking on a phone, they're going to plead with you, and you are not going to turn down someone crying their eyes out trying to talk to their mom that's in Michigan or something. So it's going to be really expensive. So just going into this, you need to know, either you keep it tight, don't let anyone know except for the people that are in your group or family that you have one, just so you don't have in the real world, don't have a huge bill that comes back at the end of the month, or come into it knowing that's going to be a possibility and build your plan accordingly, your minutes plan. All that being said, if you have the means to purchase satellite phones in a realistic quantity that you can actually go satellite phone to satellite phone, then I will always recommend that, because Iridium has always worked for me. I've never once had an issue with them. I've always been able to do text message. I've always been able to make a phone call. There might be some delay. If the sun's acting crazy that day, you might have some delay in getting connection. But I've never had a situation where I have had a full blackout on that phone. I have used Global Star and MRSat, and I have had blackouts on those. I have had connection issues on those, and time. It takes a long time to connect those. But I will always recommend a satellite phone if that's possible.